Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We left off from our workshop with Niyati. Fear. What is the cause of fear? We already saw the ladder of fall very briefly. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kamak Kamak Krodha Vijayate. Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha. And hence it continues. So therefore this continuous repetitive thinking on an object or a situation creates this notion, this dependency, this attachment that I need that situation to be happy. Whatever that situation may be. And then when that attachment comes, I brew on it further and further and I start planning, etc., which creates this intense desire called lust. Now this kama, lust is not just for an opposite gender, but this is lust for anything. Means I cannot live without it. And without it, I no longer will be. So therefore, my existence depends on it. And with this desire, I plan and I execute the action. Now, when this action is executed, I expect a particular result. I'm attached to that result, which I think is going to make me happy. So whenever that result, there's a doubt that the result is going to come, a fear will kick in. What if I don't get it? Fear comes. And with that fear comes, my first thought is, what is going to stop me from getting what I want? And what is that is going to stop me from getting what I want? There must be some obstacle. Whether it's a person, whether it is a situation. It can even be God. It can be anybody. It can be a guru. Anybody or anything that is going to stop me from getting what I want, and I have this fear that it's going to happen, and I can recognize that obstacle or I imagine that obstacle becomes a problem for me, and hence arises anger. And what is this anger? Krodha. Not just anger of any light matter, but krodha, rage, where I lose control of the remaining little bit of my intellect also. Because I'm able to recognize that there's an obstacle, but that rage comes and takes over the intellect. Now intellect is lost. And in that rage, now we hear many stories in the news, etc., how somebody became out of control, killed somebody, did some damage to something. After that they repent, oh my God, what have I done? So the moment I imagine that there's an obstacle, I recognize there's an obstacle, I want to get rid of the obstacle. Because I want my desired goal and there's nothing that can stop me, and my happiness depends on it. My own existence depends on it. I will be nobody if I don't get it. We even get to that level. And hence we try to, with our anger, with our rage, we try to remove the obstacle. But if the obstacle was so strong, because my intellect is not working. If my intellect was working, I might be able to find solution. But because I'm so caught in this emotional web that I've called myself as the cycle of samsara, that cycle that Niyati was showing us, when you understand, when you get caught in that cycle, and your intellect is not working, and there's no way that you can get rid of the obstacle, then begins the very famous thing called depression. And we hear many of it in this world. Shows what we're so entangled in our emotional mind that we don't have our intellect helping us. That's why even little children, I'm depressed. Everybody who I'm depressed. I'm so stressed out, Swamiji. Hey, what is this depression? What is this stress? What is going on? It shows that we're so entangled in our emotion, our intellect is not kicking in. At least with our intellect, we can find some solution. So whenever we feel there's a sense of fear, understand there is an attachment behind it. And if that fear is left long enough, the first response is to remove the obstacle, anger. And if that anger doesn't work, depression. And when depression comes, I am the victim. Poor me. And then you collapse. Never allow yourself to fall. And that's the time that you and I must, in life, we must have a separate intellect. Alright, what is the separate intellect? Like in Gita, Arjuna had, Krishna has the supporting intellect. Somebody that you can go to who can act as your intellect to guide you, to lift you out of this slumber that you have gone into. And that is very important. But you must do that when your own intellect is alive and kicking and working. Not at that time when you are in depression, you look, who will be my support? So therefore, everybody must have this, which I told the chicks, we call it the emergency upliftment procedures. Who is that person who's emergency upliftment person? Who's going to lift you on? So therefore, in different aspects, in different parts of our life, we may have different people we go to. What is my emergency upliftment? Is to go to Puja Swamiji. Direct. There is no in-between personality. Go directly and get if your intellect is not working. Like that, our guru becomes an emergency upliftment person. But we must have such wise people in our life who will be able to act as our intellect and pull our intellect out of that mind so that it can make the decision. It is our intellect that we have to strengthen. How to strengthen this intellect? Well, one thing you're doing right now is attending a workshop, a retreat, learning about it. We must develop it with knowledge. Intellect works with knowledge, but not just with knowledge, but with the support of the mind. How to get support of the mind is to practice what you have been learning. And once you start putting it into practice, it becomes part of you as a conviction. And your mind understands that it is there. Don't let it run and become too late. So therefore, whenever we have fear, look for what is the attachment. When I'm angry, why am I angry? And many times, after some time, we forget even why we are angry and we're just angry. So therefore, find out what is the attachment. And once that attachment I understand with my intellect, then I can see, is it an expectation which is false? Or is it a real thing that it is required in the world outside? Even though we say the world is an illusion, we have to understand that while we live in this world, there are things that need to be done. There are certain expectations, certain values that needs to be lived. So therefore, we have to understand that what is those values and is it being followed? Is it a value thing or is it a false expectation that I have? And if it's a value thing and it's something that needs to be done, then I need to address it, how to rectify it. Do I have control to change the situation? And if I don't have control over the situation, who has control over the situation? And even then, if I don't have control over it, I can only do my best. The rest, I pray to the Lord. And I say, oh Bhagavan, you now take care of it. Leave it to Him. And move on with it. Because there are things in life we can't change. But there are things in life which we can change. What I have control over, with my intellect, make the right choices, the best choices I can, and get on with it. What I don't have choice, leave it to God. That, oh Lord, you now guide me. And if intellect is not working, go to those people who are in your emergency upliftment program. Ask them, please guide me. Go to the wise ones. So, this Jivan Mukta, who is beyond the agitations of the mind, who is beyond, because he has come to experience, he or she has come to experience that self in them, that permanent everlasting happiness. And their experience is not just that they are happiness, they are the self. They see that the same self is shining in everybody. So the self in me is the self everywhere. So therefore, there is no place where the Atma in me is not there. It is everywhere. This is the experience of Jivan Mukta. Right? It's not that I've experienced happiness in me, that's it. But that same self, happiness, is in everyone. So therefore, if I'm happy with myself and I know that everyone has the same Atma, the same self in them, I am in everybody, do I not want to uplift everybody? To give that happiness I have with others? So this Jivan Mukta, now, he's been presented with a place to live. So now let us see in verse number 3, what are the living conditions of this Jivan Mukta and how does he handle it?
कदाचित् प्रासादे क्वचिदपि च सौधे च धवले कदा काले शैले क्वचिदपि च कूलेषु सरिताम् कुटीरे दान्तानाम् मुनिजनवराणामपि वसन् मुनिर्नव्यामोहम् भजति गुरुदीक्षाक्षततमाः
Kadachit prasade. Some people read it as prasade. So we always interested in prasad. Right? But prasade means prasade means a palace. So when this Jivan Mukta lives in a palace, what is his condition? He lives in the palace. He enjoys the comforts of the palace. If he moves to a mansion, Sodecha Davale, he lives in a mansion or a big, glamorous marble white house. He lives there. Happily he lives. But then if he gets moved to a different place, Kada Kale Saile, if he's moved into a mountain place to live, okay, happily he will live in the mountain. Kada Kutire Dantanam, if he goes, lives in a hermitage, in a kutia, if he goes and lives there, what will be his condition? He will live in the hut and be very happy with living in the hut. If he has to live near the riverside, he lives in the riverside. If he has to live with saints and sages, he will live with other saints and sages. No, Swamiji, I like to live on my own. I don't like to live with other people. I must only live in a house, big house. I can't live in a small house. In whatever condition he lives in, he or she lives in, this Jivan Mukta, he's happy. Because what is a place required for? To sleep. So how does it matter whether you live in a big house or a small house? Do you know that those people who have big houses, how difficult it is to clean? And to clean that house, you have to invite some contractor or some person to come and clean the house. And for that, you have to work harder to pay for that cleaning also. How difficult it is, right? So better live in small house only. So what we have to understand is, this Jivan Mukta has no pressure that I have to live in this big house or in this small house. Why we have pressure as householders, etc.? It is not that we want to live in such a house. We have to show other people that we are prosperous. Why we have to show them? Swamiji, what are you talking about? You are a sannyasi. How will you understand? People look at a person's success by the big house they live. So what do you do? To have that big house, you take a big mortgage and then suffer. Work like a donkey all night, all day, late nights, trying to save money, just to show other people that you are successful. We have to think. We should live a life of simple living. Not simply living. Simple living. And higher thinking. Why do I need a big house? And you all know, as the ladies, who does most of the cleaning in the house? Who looks after the house? We ourselves wanted the big house, and we ourselves have to do all the hard work. It should not be the case. Everybody should do the work. Every husband, wife, children, everybody should do. But who ends up doing it? Let's be realistic here. So therefore, think carefully. Why I need a big house? To show off to somebody else who's going to come for a few hours, 1 or 2 hours, and then go away. That Muni, who is Jivan Mukta, who is happy in himself, wherever he gets a place to sleep, he sleeps. Whichever dwelling, whether it's in the mountain, whether it's in a palace, whether it's in a big mansion, whether it's in a hut, whether it's in the bank river, or it's under the tree under the temple. That's why when Puja Gurudev started his first talks, let Hindus become Hindus, in Pune, he went to ask for the temple to have a talk in the temple. Then the organizers asked, Swami, where will you be staying? And Gurudev said, I'll be staying in a multi-star hotel. And they said, what is multi-star hotel? He said, under the sky. The roof is my hut. The sky is my roof and the earth is my floor. Bed, I will sleep. So this is what a sannyasi is. One who, this Jivan Mukta, is one who is able to live anywhere. But in whichever circumstances he is in, he is comfortable and happy. So the question is, can we also? So sometimes he lives in a palace, and at other times in a whitewashed mansion, sometimes in a mountain, and other times in the banks of rivers. Sometimes he lives in a hermitage of other sages who are self-controlled, but the sage whose ignorance has been dispelled by the teachings of his teacher never gets deluded. So what we have to understand is, one who is experiencing that permanent happiness can live anywhere. But the question is, can we live anywhere? Or we put in a place and you see a cockroach. Oh my God, cockroach! Oh, it's so dirty. Or are we able to sleep there also? It's not to say that you should not keep your house clean. But the thing is, wherever you go, and many times we go on yatras and stuff like that, conditions are not so great. And then we start shouting at the organizer only. What a useless thing you have given. You know, we came to Kailash, but we told you the condition is that you have to sleep in tents. And in that cold weather and everything, hot water will be not there. But what is our condition? We forgot. We did not hear any of that. In the desire to reach Kailash, we did not hear the other bits. So what we have to understand is that in all circumstances, we should be able to live and be peaceful and happy. So at that moment, do the best what you can. Further, he continues in verse number 4.
क्वचित् बालैः सार्धम्
क्वचित् बालैः सार्धं
करतलजटालैश्च हसितैः
करतलजटालैश्च हसितैः
क्वचित् वैतारुण्याम्
क्वचित् वै तारुण्यां
कितचतुरनार्या सह रमन्
किटचतुरनार्या सह रमन्
क्वचित् वृद्धैश्चिन्ताम्
क्वचित् वृत्तै चिन्तां
क्वचिदपि तदन्यैश्च विलपन्
क्वचिदपि तदन्यैश्च विलपन्
मुनिर्न व्यामोहम्
मुनिर्न व्यामोहम्
भजति गुरुदीक्षा शततमाः
भजति गुरुदीक्षा क्षततमाः.
With this knowledge that the Guru has given, where the delusion has gone, that my happiness is my own true nature. Even for those who have gained some knowledge, that even this knowledge we have gained from this retreat, for us to be able to observe our own self. Is this emotion right or is this emotion not right? What is the right action and what is the wrong action? If my intellect can look at it, I will be able to overcome many problems that I have. And my life to that extent will become happier. So here in this verse 4, the Jivan Mukta, who has gained this ultimate knowledge that he knows that he is true happiness. How does he function in the world outside? How does he relate to different age groups? Kvachit balaihi sadrisham. Karatala jatala laisha hasitaihi. Karatala jatalaisha. So clapping his hands, hasitaihi, laughing and enjoying himself. He plays with children. So when he's with children, he's like a child only. Not childish, but childlike. Very relatable to them. And those of you who have met Puja Gurudev, how he would laugh. And especially when you listen to his stories, videos that he would laugh and children just love listening to him. Why? Because he comes down to our level. So therefore, and he just laughs and claps. He plays with the children. And other times, this Jivan Mukta spends time with Tarunya, Chaturvana, with sometimes spending time with clever ladies and beautiful ladies. Just spends time with them and talking to them, etc. And many men will say, "Arey, what a nice thing to do. And spend time with beautiful, clever ladies." But what we have to understand is, this Jivan Mukta is what? Having overcome the ignorance of the body, mind, intellect, and knows that he is happiness itself. There is no identification of any lusty nature, etc. He just relates with them and spends time talking to them, sharing the wisdom with them, etc. Right? It's not some other, like how some mad people out there who describe the relationship between Krishna and the gopis as some lustful relationship. Right? Who was Krishna and who were the gopis? One day when we do Gopika Gita, we will understand who are these gopis. They're not ordinary people. And Krishna was not an ordinary boy. This is how it's shown in different people who don't understand what is our philosophy, our understanding. Right? So, sporting and talking to these playing with, talking to these clever ladies and beautiful ladies. And sometimes he even spends time with the old people. And what should you do with the old people? He would listen to their problems. Even though he has no problem of his own, he is in bliss. It's not that, useless, what is your useless imagination? Get over this imagination. What's wrong with you? No, it is not like that. He spends time listening to you, what your problems are. Not tell you what is useless problems. There's no problem at all. Why stop imagining? But he spends time with you, finds solutions to help you resolve your problem and get back your intellect. He gives that lending ears. He even sits and cries with you also because you are crying. Not that he is crying because he is feeling, but he sympathizes with you. He empathizes with you. He puts himself in your shoes and he understands what your problem is. He clearly listens to what the problem and helps us out. So whether it is young children, whether it is your teenagers, and very nicely teenagers he spends time with, and youth also, with young ladies also, with old people also, at different levels he connects with. That's why Puja Gurudev is an amazing person. Why? Because he can relate to everybody. And everybody felt that he was there for them. Nobody who has met Gurudev would feel that he was not there for them. Which same with Puja Swamiji and Puja Guruji, same thing only. Because they relate to each and every one of us based on who we are. No judgment that we are good, bad, up, down, lower, higher, anything. Everybody in their eyes is equal only. And each one gets that 100% attention, 100% care. Because in their heart, they have permanent infinite happiness and they have love. The self in me is the self in the other person. I am the one only there in that person. So therefore, to uplift them, that love shines through. When you see oneness, there is only love. So therefore, this Jivan Mukta sometimes laughs, sometimes claps with children, at other times plays and talks to and inspires the young ladies and the beautiful ladies, sometimes with the youth, sometimes with the elders, relating to them in what they need and uplift them. And why is this so? Because this sage constantly keeps remembering. Now, who was this sage before? This Jivan Mukta before? He was one of us only. So obviously he understands what we are all going through. In that compassion and love. He remembers that his Guru lifted him up to the highest infinite bliss. So therefore, in that love, that in remembrance of his Guru's teachings, he also lifts others up also. So in this way, the sage whose ignorance has been dispelled by the teachings of his teacher never gets deluded. Always holding on to the higher. Through that experience of the infinite, he functions in the world outside. Otherwise, what happens? When we start listening to other people's problems, how many of us, when we watch a movie, there's some death situation is happening in the TV, in the movie, and your wife is, in the movie, that wife is dying or she dies, and that man in the movie is crying, and we identify to that and we are crying. How many of us have cried in movies? How we get involved and we forget who we are. But this Jivan Mukta never forgets that he is Brahman. Even if he is listening to others, he will sympathize, empathize, he will do everything to help that person. But he never forgets that he is Brahman. So it seems like this Jivan Mukta does everything we do. Yes, he does. But there's a difference. We do it for getting happiness. He does it out of that pure, infinite happiness. So slowly we are seeing what is that Jivan Mukta state. How he functions in the world. How is it different from what you and I do, compared to what that Jivan Mukta does. Actions are the same, but the vision is different. We want immediate pleasures and happiness. He wants to give us infinite happiness. He functions from the total perspective. You and I function from the immediate pleasure perspective. So therefore, looking at the inspiration from this Jivan Mukta, may we also lift. So with that, we will stop today's session.